Hello, everybody. Welcome to our instant reaction edition of the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here with Tom Orr. We are currently in the Ohio State coaches press box area, so if you hear a little fan above us, we've gone to various other rooms and we still get this sound. It's like they don't care that we're doing this.
The fan noise is to cool off the smoking crater on the defensive side of the Ohio State coaches box. So, yeah, that's what it's there for. It's a safety thing. So we apologize, but that's what that noise is.
The room in here is there's crushed bottles over there. There's empty Uncrustable bags strewn everywhere. It looks like it was a very stressful day for the coaches. I don't know if that's offense, defense, everybody. Looking at the box score, Ohio State wins at 52-51 in overtime. Everybody should be stressed. Ryan Day and Kevin Wilson maybe should be a little angry with the defense, but they should be happy that they got the running game going again against Maryland. The passing game was fine, as we expected, but the story is Anthony McFarland and the rushing yards that Ohio State allowed, Tom. And, you know, it wasn't the first carry, it was Anthony McFarland's second carry, I believe. The first one was like a stop of a loss of 1. And then the second one went for 81. And you're like, well, you know, this happens. Then his third carry goes for 75. And you're like, well, there's no playoffs for this team, even if they win this. And we've said this for weeks, this is who they are. There is no fixing it, even though, Tom, it's minor fixes. It's just little things, easy fixes. But as we've said time and again, they must not be that easy because they aren't fixed.
Right. This is stuff that didn't get fixed. The whole first half of that game, it seemed like Maryland was using the same basic run play, shift the formation, run to the weak side, and it just kept hitting big. It kept hitting big. It kept hitting big, and then they never adjusted to it. After the game, Greg Schiano, who I'm sure is going to be one of the most popular people in Columbus after that game, talked about the fact that, well, you know, we had people there, so, and that certainly seems like a very polite way to say, well, I mean, it's kind of the players' fault that.
I disagree. He didn't have people there. He had a person there.
He had a person there, and that's the thing. Yeah, you had a person there. That's true. You're relying on one person to make a tackle, and if that person does not make the tackle, then it's an 80-yard touchdown.
And as we've seen, why in the world would you rely on one person in this defense? We've seen them struggle like this before. This was nothing new. This wasn't like a one-off thing. This is the defense.
Yeah.
And so why would you continue to put them in situations where, gosh, I hope this guy makes the tackle. I hope he's in the right spot. And I don't know I forget who said it after the game, one of the defensive guys. Basically, the Ohio State defense went back to a base because there were issues in guys filling the right gaps. Is this the 11th game of the season?
Yes, it is, because the best part of going 10-0 is the chance to go to 11-0.
Right,
So yes,
and these players that are playing now, have they been playing all season?
Yes, much to the chagrin of many Ohio State fans, there have not been a lot of personnel changes on defense.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm just trying to do the math here. That if players are still not going to the right gaps, are they being taught improperly? Are they not listening? Are they listening to too much rock music? Any number of reasons, but it's clear that this staff can't get them to where they need to be. And this defense right now, to give up, 339 yards on the ground to a team that cannot throw the ball, shouldn't happen unless it's a triple option team. This is not a triple option team. This is a hand the ball off because we can't throw it team.
Right.
And they just ran through them.
Yeah. Anthony McFarland, 21 carries for 298 yards. You do not often see someone with more than 20 carries and a 14.2 yards per carry average. And he got hurt at one point where he probably would have broken that Tim Biakapatuka record of 313. Yeah. This was a Bill Young defense out there, it looked like. I mean, hashtag facts only.
Jeez.
Let's
pause the show here.
I do like your theory that it was listening to rock music because you know, if you play I don't know. Who are the kids listening to these days? I don't know.
Oasis?
Jay-Z? Yeah. If you play an Oasis record backwards, it says "Miss Your Run Fits."
It's
deeply troubling.
And interestingly, when you listen to a British music and in reverse, they have a Southern accent.
Oh, that's interesting. You talked about the rushing for Maryland, 339 yards on 48 carries total. The passing, it was big plays on the ground, but it was also big plays in the air. They didn't throw it very much. They threw it 14 times all game, 7 completions, and they threw 196 yards. It took Dwayne Haskins 28 completions to get 405, a quarter of that much, and Maryland had basically half as many yards. It was like double the amount of yards per pass, yards per completion that Ohio State had.
It was like a triple option game. Without the triple option, the passing, just big passes on play actions. And Kendall Sheffield gave up, and if you're no longer hearing the fan, it's because it's off for now. Now they'll start playing like the loud music. But Kendall Sheffield had a rough few passes. I thought Jeff Okuda, we didn't really see him much in terms of like giving up catches or anything.
No, he had a pretty quiet day, which you're a corner,
Damon Arnett, he got chewed out for he gave up the first touchdown because he lost contain, and they were talking to him very loudly on the sideline as he got to the sideline. So it's not just the linebackers, and let's also, while we're destroying the Ohio State defense, Tuf Borland had 4 tackles for loss. So there is some good there, and I don't know if there's anything that Tuf Borland can do to get on the good side of Buckeye fans this year, like Buckeye fans as a whole. He's a scapegoat, right or wrong. There are plays that he cannot get to, but he was pretty decent. But you can't say anything good about anybody on defense that is supposed to stop the run when you've given up 339 yards and 298 yards to one guy. The stats are amazing. I'm just going through the stat packet now.
Maryland ran 62 plays. 11 of them went for a loss. 11. Like 20% of the plays went for a loss, almost. And it was just, we talked about this last week on Buckeye Weekly. They can't move the ball down the field consistently. They can't march it down the field. You're not going to see a lot of 12-play drives. Their hallmark is big plays. And to give up 51 points almost entirely on big plays it's incredible to me that we are having the same conversation we had after the Oregon State game. It's almost two and a half months later, and it's like, nothing's actually better. Like, it gets better when they play a really, really, really terrible team like Michigan State, a terrible offense. Then it gets better. But it doesn't actually, nothing's actually fixed. It's just Michigan State wasn't able to take advantage of anything.
Yeah, it doesn't get better maybe, but it doesn't get good. Maryland's longest sustained drive was 8 plays for 60 yards. That was just, the 60 obviously, not the long, but like you said, there's no, they'll pick it up third and two, and then, another 3 sets of downs, and they're just going to grind it out. Maybe they could if they would stop running all the way to the end zone. Settle down, guys, with the rock music.
With the rock music.
Yeah.
Yes, Gus Vogel asked if I could go 5 minutes without sounding old. No, I cannot. Thank you for asking.
Get off our lawn.
Yes, first scoring drive for Maryland, 2 plays, 80 yards. Second scoring drive for Maryland, 1 play, 75 yards. That seems bad. Is that bad? I don't know. I don't watch a lot of football. Is that good?
No, in fact, it is terrible.
Oh.
It is very terrible. Very, very terrible. And this is the identity of this defense, is giving up big plays. And they talk about it every week. And, we focus on our tackling. We worked on tackling. We worked hard on it, and we got better. I don't think it's the tackling that gets better. I think it's the talent they face that gets worse. And Anthony McFarland is not worse talent. And you saw that today.
Now, does Michigan have a running back who can do that against Ohio State next week?
Yes. I think Karan Higdon can do not 80 yards, but he can go 35 and then do it again. Chris Evans can go 80 yards, and I don't put it past anybody to go 80 yards unless they just get caught from behind. Everybody is going to have these holes and one guy to beat. And if you beat that guy, you know what? There's nobody else. Everybody else is turned around and not looking for the football because they are on their man. So and you could have Donovan Peoples-Jones do it with a wide receiver reverse, or any. And you can even Shea Patterson has an 80-yard rush this year. Mm-hmm. So I would definitely be concerned about the Michigan running game and the Michigan passing game, because this defense right now, they don't know, like, from all sides where things are coming from or where to be. They were getting out leveraged so often. Now they bounce back in the third quarter, give up 19 yards or 26 yards.
Yeah. The third quarter, I think they gave up 19 yards, but then the fourth quarter went right back to lots and lots of points.
But you know what? If you take that third quarter and you take out the first quarter, you take out the second quarter, you take out the fourth quarter, and you take out the overtime, except for that extra point, the 2-point conversion, we'll leave that in. If you just look at the third quarter and that 2-point conversion, pretty good day defensively.
Yeah, fourth quarter, Ohio State gave up 132 yards passing just in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Right after that Ben Victor touchdown that tied it again with 40 seconds left, immediately first play, 30 yards down the field to Tavon Jacobs.
I assume that was coming right at you because you were down in that corner?
The Ben Victor touchdown?
No, the first play after that, they threw deep. And I was wondering, because I was down at the opposite corner. How did that guy get open so
I
easily?
did not. I was still going down the field because I went diagonally across the field. But
how do you? How? I don't even know what was wrong. If it was Sheffield or what?
I think it was Sheffield, but I don't know for sure.
We watched the game, but we don't always get to see what's going on.
Yeah, sometimes we're running from one end of the field to the other, and you don't get to see it down in the field. Some of us are running. I didn't see that, but it was. I mean, that's exactly the question. Like, there is literally one thing they can do right now that can hurt you. Like, don't give up a 30-yard play to put them in field goal range. Like, also don't give up an 80-yard play, which is hard. Maybe that was the concession. They didn't want to give them an 80-yard play, so they gave up a 30-yard play, which only merely put them in field goal range.
That's true. Good point. You know what? We're not defensive coordinators. We'll leave it to the professionals.
We should talk about the offense. People are going to want to jump off the roof. We should talk about the offense for a while, a little more, because Haskins had 400 yards again, which 3 months ago would have been the greatest performance in Ohio State passing history, and then now it's like, it's the fourth time this year, whatever. But more telling to me, and maybe more encouraging to me from the offensive side, J.K. Dobbins had a 200-yard game today. That's a big sign. And also, in case people are wondering, we didn't know this during the game. Urban Meyer said after the game, Mike Weber had a quad bruise on his leg. This is like the thigh muscle, so that's why he did not play today. An OSU spokesman had told us during the game he was not aware of an injury, but that's why Mike Weber didn't play. So, and
it was like they were hoping it would get better, so they seem to expect him to play next week. Thayer Munford, they expect to play.
Urban said Thayer Munford was probable. Damon Arnett, I think, was the other one he got asked about.
No, Draymond Jones was fine. We talked to him afterwards, but there was whoever else was injured was good to go. Terry McLaurin,
that's it. Yeah, everyone that they mentioned was probable or good to go next week for Michigan.
J.K. had some interesting things to say because he carried the ball career high, 37 times. He said that he likes carrying the ball that much because you can get into a groove. You don't have to come out each series. And you can continue to build and wear teams down and get a feel for how things are going. And you look at what you look at the season he has had, which has been a disappointment. But you wonder if it's because, he did last year, he got the bulk of the carries. And he's got most of the carries, if we're talking like, he's got more than Mike Weber. But he's not getting as many. He doesn't get the share, and he's not out there for 2 or 3 series in a row like he was last year. And I wonder how much that has impacted him, and how much of that is him, how much of it is the offensive line and the offense. I think there's a lot of factors that explain why he's not had a great season, but now he's over 900 yards and on his way to another 1,000-yard season.
Yeah, it seems like they've both kind of had quiet years, and that was. They basically went a month or month and a half without being able to run the ball at all. And there's a chance that both of them finish over 1,000 yards. Mike Weber now would need to have either get to the Big Ten championship game and have 3 games to do it, or have a real big game in the Rose Bowl or I don't anticipate that they're going to have a ton of success running the ball against Michigan next week, but there's at least, it's a discussion now. 3 weeks ago, running the ball against Michigan was just like, why are you wasting your downs? You have to run the ball, and we'll talk about this a whole bunch this week, I'm sure. You're going to have to run the ball against Michigan because you have to keep Michigan's offense off the field. You cannot, you can't, this is, the whole game next week is going to be, you scored too quickly. You can't score too quickly because Michigan's going to get the ball, and I think your dear listener have a good sense for what Michigan is probably going to do to this Ohio State defense. So Ohio State's going to have to hold the ball and keep the defense from having to play a ton. I mean, Ohio State today had 90-something plays, 94 plays on offense, and Maryland only had 62, which Ohio State's defense at the end of the game, I mean, they didn't look great, but Maryland's defense at the end of the game looked Maryland's defense just looked gassed. Ohio State's defense looked bad. Maryland's defense looked gassed.
There's a reason they went for 2 at the end.
Yeah, because that was it. They were done.
Yeah.
So,
you talked about J.K. Dobbins running the ball, Dwayne Haskins running the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Career high, 15 carries. I assume that's a career high for a career high
59
yards. I asked Urban Meyer afterwards, after the game, this has been Dwayne Haskins. He's the record-setting quarterback. Everybody knows him as this passer, but if he took a step forward as a leader, showcasing his toughness, because this was his game. He put the team on his back, and they relied on him to throw the 4th down, the 4th and 1. And Meyer said he took a good step forward as a leader, and they needed that from him. You need that going into Michigan. And Haskins said he wanted to perform well in front of his friends and family who are here. You should want to perform like that in front of Ohio State fans in Columbus, next week or in week 4 or whatever. But he says he enjoys running.
Maury, what does the lie detector say?
It's like when your wife fixes you something that you don't like, but you have to eat it with a smile. I love this Jell-O thing. I want some more.
Last week when did we talk to Mike Weber? Tuesday night? I think it was Tuesday night. He was talking about Dwayne Haskins running the ball, and he said, I don't know if this is verbatim, but it was basically, Dwayne doesn't want to run, or Dwayne doesn't like to run. And it was one of those things that I didn't end up putting it in an article because I didn't want it to be like if he misspoke a little bit.
Yeah.
He didn't expand on it, but it just kind of that's what he said. And I didn't want to make a big controversial thing out of it, but we talked about this during the Nebraska game when one of the Nebraska players said, well, if you score on them, they're going to fold. If you say it, it's in there. That thought is in your head. So, and I think that sort of matches what you saw from Haskins a lot earlier in the year. He didn't really want to run, and for whatever reason, you can chalk it up to doesn't want to get hit, doesn't feel comfortable, trying to keep himself safe, protected for the NFL. Well, whatever. Everyone's got their own little theory on why, but whatever the reason, he didn't really ever look like he wanted to run. Didn't ever look comfortable running. Today, he put his shoulder down. He ran some people over. He went and got hard yards. He didn't slide 3 or 4 yards before other guys got there. He was in it to win it today. And Urban, after the game, you asked him about whether this was like a step forward for Haskins, where he's not just a stat accumulator now and a record breaker. He kind of took a step forward as a team leader. Urban liked that a lot and actually referenced it again later when someone asked him a different question. That is, again, there are things to be encouraged about from today's game, and there's the defense. But, there's a lot on that offensive side of the ball. There's a lot of different stuff to feel encouraged about between Haskins, the running game, the offensive line. To lose Thayer Munford, when Josh Alabi came in, it was like, oh man, I think I tweeted, that's the one guy they really can't lose. Because you lose a guard and you go, okay, well, you'll put Wyatt Davis in, it's fine. You lose they probably don't want to lose Michael Jordan at this point either, but you have some guys you can kind of afford to lose or swap in and out of that line. Munford is not really someone that you would have thought that about, but Josh Alabi came in and did a nice job. He wasn't perfect, but he was solid. He did a nice job.
Early on, it was kind of iffy, but then things got, he got comfortable and he was fine, and that's what you need. He's a veteran. He's a fourth-year guy. So, he did well. What do you got up there? DeMario McCall, I thought it was great to see him again. And J.K. Dobbins was happy to see him, said he's going to be a great player once he gets his opportunity. When will that be? Maybe next year. Dwayne Haskins said that he is looking forward to next week to send the seniors out on the right note, their final game in Ohio Stadium. And I wanted to ask if it was going to be his final game. But, of course, my one question had already been asked. But do you think that's a fair question this week?
Whether this is Dwayne Haskins' last game? It's not a question you're going to get answered. So he's not someone who's going to go through senior tackle like Sam Hubbard did last year because he hasn't graduated. He's not someone who they're going to honor on senior day because he's already graduated. I mean, you knew it with Sam Hubbard last year. It'll be a little bit of a discussion, I'm sure. I'm sure that, I think that it's reasonable to think that he's certainly thinking about it, at least.
Well, and that's really the point of the question, is to gauge where he is right now in his thought process. Do we have any questions?
We do have questions, and we'll have lots more questions tonight. But
yes.
I don't know. Do we want to go through listener questions now, or do we want to save them for a?
Are these Michigan questions?
Well, we'll go through and we'll do some of them. Here's what we're going to do. Yeah, we'll go through your questions right now. And we're going to answer the Maryland ones. The Michigan one, this is going to be a little complicated. We're doing a whole crap load of podcasts for you guys this week. So Boatload, yes.
Bleep that.
I don't have the editing software here. So we're going to do probably a podcast a day this week because you know what week it is.
Right.
So we are going to have a podcast that we'll release on Monday that'll be all Michigan questions. So you can find us on Twitter. Gerd tweeted it out. I retweeted it. Find that tweet. Just answer that tweet. We're going to go through and do a Q&A show, record that probably Sunday night, and release that on Monday. So you can ask us Michigan questions there. So if we're ignoring your Michigan questions here, just ask them there, and then we'll answer them there. So I'm just going to scroll back to the beginning, and we will go on. Gus asks, does the coach's room reek of sweat? Only half of it. Literally, the paint,
only the defensive side.
Literally, the paint is peeling off the walls over on one side, which
that's true. Yeah.
I always thought that was just a figure of speech.
Nope.
But apparently no. Ryan Smith says emotionally and physically exhausted from yet another head scratching and disappointing showing by the back seven on D and offensive line.
Well, Draymond was sore because he's hurting. J.K. said he's not hurting; he's just tired. He's not sore; he's just tired.
Haskins said he was sore.
Yeah.
I mean that is not a physical beating that he has taken much this year. And maybe this is a little bit like the J.T. Barrett thing last year, where you didn't generally see J.T. Barrett run it 25 times against Illinois or a team that you knew they were going to beat. Mm-hmm. You did see it in the big spots, and so maybe this is a thing where they know, and Haskins knows you're gonna need it, so you got to just do it. And
the running game, he's been running the ball more. The running game has been more productive of late. Urban has said they need their quarterback to run the ball and at least be a threat to do that. And he averaged 3-4 yards a pop, with maybe a sack or two in there. But just the fact that he is willing to do it, 3 touchdown runs, he pulled it. Sometimes it looks like it's slow motion, but it's still going to be something that they have to focus on. Defenses have to worry about. Michigan will have to worry about. I don't see them getting lost and trying to defend him on the ground. They'll just go ahead and catch him from behind or track him down after his 3-yard gain. Mm-hmm. But you still have to keep defenses honest, and that's what that does.
Yeah, and that might be more significant in goal line situations where you can't give up 3 yards. I mean, we saw that against Michigan State where they were in that goal line situation. They had Tate Martell in for the one play, and then pulled him back out. Haskins came back in, and you saw both, I don't know if it was outside backers or corners or whatever, just crashing from both sides as hard as they could. Because there's just, obviously Dwayne Haskins is going to keep the ball. So if you could just keep them a little bit honest, and even in just those circumstances, and pick up 4 yards rather than throwing it away, pick up 4 yards, go from, instead of 2nd and 10, it's 2nd and 6, you're still on schedule, you have some more options.
And it gives J.K. Dobbins more of an opportunity to hit the holes in the middle when they can't crash as hard. Mm-hmm. So that allows everybody to move more.
Ryan says offenses lick their chops while preparing for OSU. They know exactly what they're going to get and scheme accordingly. I don't know how they continue to look confused that teams simply aren't lining up and trying to run right at us. It's how the British must have felt in the American Revolution.
In the first half, it's so strange that we're joking in the press box like it's illegal to make adjustments in the first half. You can only do adjustments at halftime. It's the only sporting way to do this, and it's they do work, but then somehow Maryland was able to adjust to Ohio State's adjustments between quarters.
I mean, clearly this is a lawless program. Maryland's NCAA violations. I don't want to say that they should be thrown in prison for that kind of a reckless.
Right.
But I'm not saying it.
Right. A couple weeks in county jail.
Yes, at least. Ryan says, and this is what we were talking about earlier, the play that they hit him on in the first half, motion to the wide side of the field, OSU defense over-rotated 3 to 4 players, leaving the back door short side of the field wide open, and you get gashed over 150 yards and 3 touchdowns off that one motion counterplay. We talked about that after the game a little bit downstairs. That's not that complicated a fix. You can slant guys into that. You can just shift your linebackers around. Because Shiano's answer was, well, we had a guy there. Yeah. Well, okay, but then he missed the tackle, so then you gave up an 80-yard touchdown. So congratulations on the guy there, but that's your job is not to have the guy there. Your job is to not give up 80-yard touchdowns.
Yeah, do better.
Yeah. All right. Raquel, any talk of change of coaching staff at season's end? Not yet, but
there will be.
I mean, there will be a conversation after the game, after the year, I'm sure. But
do you think there's any what is your percentage chance that there are no changes? Because I would go less than 10% that there are no changes.
Yes, I think that it is extremely unlikely that there are no changes. I mean, when was the last time Ohio State had a defense that looked like this? Probably 2013, end of the year. And then Everett Withers took a head coaching job. And
congratulations
to him. And, I would certainly think that you may have some head coaching opportunities or NFL opportunities that people can't say no to.
No, got to.
Real best Big 12 game of the season. Yeah, I mean,
stop stealing our jokes.
Yeah, I was going to say you've got. I think you have to stop making fun of the Big 12. Yeah. Oklahoma State makes Ohio State jokes. So, only thing you have to recap is linebacker coach needs to go. That's what Jim says. Well, that's and miss Coach Combs. I don't know if you can. I don't know how much you can put on Taver Johnson right now. The linebacker, it's been a couple of years. The linebacker situation is what it is. The corners, they don't have a Denzel Ward this year. And I don't know, you can credit Kerry Combs for some of Denzel Ward's development, but he was not entirely a Kerry Combs product. He had some natural ability, and we had an assumption coming into the year that, well, okay, one of these guys is going to step forward because they always do, and then it just hasn't happened this year.
Yeah, I mean, he had these guys last year, and without Denzel, they would have been doing what they're doing now.
Treebuck says from the Ozone Forum, can't wait for senior missed tackle this week.
Oh,
that is extremely good.
That's good.
Matt asks, did the coaches address the kickoff return team? How can they get out-coached on that? How do your players not know how to cover a live kickoff? There were enough other things on fire today that didn't get answered, but
which is amazing.
That the special teams just people just look like they're vapor locking out there, and we finally found out what it was going to take to get Johnny Dixon off of kick returns, because he's had, I mean, against Purdue he had the one that ended up at the 1 yard line. Like, I think you have basically seen what you're going to see out of Johnny Dixon. He's not going to run a kickoff back for a touchdown. I don't think he did that in high school either, if I remember right.
I think he said that.
So I think at this point you throw DeMario McCall back there, because it's not like Johnny Dixon's the safe option, because you're getting just live balls out there, just not picking up or down at the one. Like, throw DeMario McCall out there, and YOLO, see what happens.
Yeah, Dixon isn't the only guy I've seen this year in college football do the wave and then let the ball bounce and then I need to go get that.
Whoops. Yeah. Raquel says Shea Patterson doesn't need to throw a pass next week. Maybe. Matt says Indiana is stuffing Michigan's run. Indiana is Baron Browning close to getting back on the field. We didn't get a verdict on Baron Browning. He supposedly made the trip today. I don't know that I saw him, but
see him. I would expect him to. Anybody who is like close next week,
yes,
will be pushed.
Yes,
push themselves to be ready.
It needs to be something really remarkable, like John Simon 2012 or whatever year
Nick
that was.
Bosa now. Even he may even play. So you heard it here first.
All right.
But just because Indiana is stuffing Michigan's run, I mean, what does Michigan State held Maryland to 26 yards rushing? Mm-hmm. How many carries of 26 yards or 25 yards did Maryland have tonight? At least 4.
I mean, minimally 4, maybe.
Because McFarland had the 25-yarder in overtime, although I think that ended up being 24 technically, maybe.
Yeah.
But he had the 50-yarder, the 80-yarder, 75-yarder. Let's not compare other defenses to this one unless we're talking
France.
Perfect.
Matt says, do you think Ohio State can just sneak the ball if they need an inch?
No.
Nope. I mean,
they had the opportunity today.
Yeah. Nope.
Unless they practice it this week, which maybe that's the wrinkle. The quarterback sneak.
Oh, man.
First down.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Joe says, keep throwing downfield, drew flags, and big plays more than we've seen. I mean, this was a game where you saw some of the stuff that people on just Ohio State fans have been clamoring for all year. Hey, heave it downfield, see what happens.
Yeah.
And good things happened. I mean, you have receivers who can get down the field and catch the ball. You have a quarterback that can throw it down there. They're going to have to do that next week against Michigan because you have to get those defenders out of the box. Yep. You have to spread them out.
And like we were talking about, Maryland won't go 12 plays on you.
Right.
Ohio State won't be able to go 12 plays routinely next week.
Nope.
So you need to get like 5 or 6 of those plays in one. Mm-hmm. And go deep, challenge those safeties, challenge the corners, just challenge them down the field. If you go 3 and out, you're going to go 4 or 5 and out pretty much anyway. Just rely on the field position, punting timely, which has been going well. But you have to take shots. You have to try to get big chunks against that defense. And like you said, then it backs people off. Then it gets momentum. The crowd gets into it, and anything can happen at that point.
This game, I think, next week reminds me a little bit of the 2004 game, and not just because that was probably the last time Ohio State was an underdog to Michigan at home. And they're going to be, because you look at that game, and Ohio State came in basically with nothing to lose. They've got something to lose this week, but they came in, and it was exactly what you just talked about. They couldn't necessarily drive the ball in that Michigan defense, but first drive of that game, 68 yards, whatever it was, to Anthony Gonzalez, and you had the Ted Ginn punt return in that game. You had a couple big passes. You had a couple big runs from Troy Smith. Like, that's what they're going to have to do, because they're not going to be able to go 12 plays, 80 yards, 15 plays, 75 yards. Like, they're going to have to hit some of those big plays. Get some turnovers. I mean, if Ohio State can get the pick 6 next week instead of giving up the pick 6, that would go a long way to...
Now, Tom, was that a question that we should have waited for the Michigan show?
Forget I said anything, and we'll just talk about this later.
Really?
Matt says DeMario would still be running if Haskins gave it to him. Yeah, it's
I saw that too.
Yeah. John says, this team makes me drink. Make sure you stay hydrated.
You're welcome.
It's Michigan week. Stay hydrated. Joe asked about Bill Davis. I'll paraphrase. He's a big fan of Bill Davis. Spoiler alert, nope.
Yeah, no.
Matt says Antoine Winfield made a living at blitzing when they motioned away. Cornerback should blitz. Ours gets rolled into a safety position.
Yeah. I mean, that's Greg Schiano. That's what he prefers, and you might not have. I mean, there will be changes defensively next year, even if it's probably for the bowl game, in terms of what Urban Meyer wants to see from his defense. He wanted an attacking defense. He got that, but now he's probably going to want something else, because he was mad on the field. Threw his headset down at one point, walked away from the coaches, and was just mad online.
He was mad
basically
online, yes.
throughout that game, or in the first half especially.
Interesting question from Jalen. Do you think the Martell package is done now that Haskins isn't afraid to run? I think the answer is probably yes. I don't think you're going to see Tate Martell next week. I don't think, because if Haskins can pick up the yardage, they're going to certainly try that. Maybe they go to Martell if it's not working, but I think their preference would be to not pull him off the field, because again today, you've seen a little bit of a struggle for the offensive line to adapt to one quarterback versus the other.
Yeah.
Again, today I think it was a false start by Isaiah Prince when Martell was in on whatever it was, first and goal from the 1, second and goal from the 1. That they had the bad snap last week from Jordan, and that's not necessarily Tate Martell's fault. But if Tate Martell's out there and this stuff is happening, they can't have that against Michigan. And it's a lot like the RPOs. And should you have to give up RPOs because your offensive line can't hack them? No, but the offensive line is what it is at this point, and you got to just deal with it. So, Joe asked, was Dwayne not running much of the season a business decision, or the coaches lead him to always hand off? I would guess it's a.
There were times where they weren't reads; they were just handing off.
A lot of times, yes.
Yeah. He talked all off season, all fall camp in the spring, like, I don't mind running. I'll do it if I need to. I just prefer to throw it. And I think that's what he is. And he's got as many receivers and tight ends that he can dump the ball off to. That's going to be his first preference. But he's seen, like, no, you're going to have to run. And if you're not, we're going to play somebody else at times. And he doesn't like that. So now he has begun to run. And is it maybe some psychology by Urban Meyer, the noted psychology major, and all of that? It appears to have worked. You wonder, can you really be a leader of the offense if you're not fighting for yards as well? And if you're just throwing it to people and letting them fight until they see maybe you fight for those yards too, maybe they don't rally around you. And I think this was a day where you saw, I think it was one of his touchdowns. He came off the field, off the sideline, and everybody was on him, and everybody was happy. And he was just basically strutting up and down the sideline like, this is my team, these are my guys, and we're going to get this win. And it was a different Dwayne Haskins today. Yeah,
it was definitely a different Dwayne Haskins, and Dwayne Haskins has been very consistently good all year, but this was a different look from him, and this is what they're going to need if they're going to win. This is the last bad team they're going to play this year, and so whether it's Michigan, if they do beat Michigan next week and they have to go play Northwestern is not going to be a gimme, and then if it's the Rose Bowl or playoff, whatever it is, you're running out of 5-5 teams. So now they're going to have to. The yards get tougher, the defense has got to get better, but they're going to. I mean, it is very apparent they're going to have to score to win. Yeah. So. They need him to do what they need him to do.
Any more questions?
Nope, we are. I think we're pretty much caught up. All Ryan, right. One last one. Ryan says, seems like they bring Tate in their offense glitches, false starts, missed snapped, or broken play 75% of the time. Yeah, I was just talking about that. That's it. And again, that's not necessarily Martell's fault, but that's the reality of the situation.
And so then you have to deal with it. Yep. So that'll do it. Ohio State 52-51 from beautiful College Park, Maryland. What did you think of your first trip to? Well, it's not your first trip, but to the stadium here.
It was underwhelming. I mean, it was. They before the game they were taping Ohio State players outside of the locker room, like they don't have room in the locker room to do medical treatment. They have. The post-game press conference room was the size of about a large walk-in closet.
A little bit bigger than what we're in right now.
Yeah, it was. It is not facilities commensurate with the league in which they currently find themselves playing.
That's a tremendous way of putting it.
Thank you very much.
So that'll do it. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for watching. Like Tom said earlier, there's going to be a bunch of shows this week, not just us, but from everybody from the Ozone Radio Network. If you could, and you have some time, go ahead and please rate and review our show. We would appreciate it. Rate all the shows, go crazy. But it helps us get seen by more people, get listened to by more people, and it helps us just, like we said last show, feel good about ourselves. At least for me, It's probably the most important thing in my life right now. So go ahead and if a like a day, or like a rating a day, it really makes me feel good. So I wish you cut all of this out because it sounds so sad. It's not funny, Tom. Anyway, that'll do it. We got to go. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching.